Hi everyone, thanks for checking out another InfoSec Hub video. Today we're going to talk about how to secure your own home network, since most of the people still work from home, or a lot of people work from home, and there's a few key things that you can do to secure your network, your devices. So here you have Home Assistant. This can be either software to manage your lights, um, maybe even your central heating. You can have Home Assistant, which is a software package. You can also have a Google speaker that's constantly listening to commandos and things like that. You should be able to limit those or not get them at all. If you want Home Assistant, there are open source packages out there that you can just with the web browser interact with, and you should maybe and preferably put that Home Assistant in its own VLAN so it cannot connect to other devices or get information from other devices. And if it uses a microphone, then you should mute the microphone. That's probably not how a Home Assistant works, but you can mute the microphone so it will not listen in on conversations. What we all do have is a computer, or in this case, a laptop with webcam. You can cover the camera with like a strip so it cannot look at you. Also, when you use a web browser, make sure that you use a secure transit security encryption, so HTTPS. Most of the websites, like 99.9% out there, is HTTPS only already. But always be careful that if you don't see a lock in the address bar, that means that you're sending data unencrypted. And there's always a possibility that somebody might snoop on the data and see what you're sending. So just make sure you check that. Again, it's 2023. Most websites are secure by now, but just keep it in mind. Also, when you go a bit further, you can have a non-privileged user account. So that's just a user account and not an admin account. There's a difference between that. For instance, if you click on a link and it has to install something, let's say malware, sometimes your OS will ask that you need admin rights in order to do something on your computer. So this with non-privileged user, just a user that can use the internet, for instance, and doesn't have any admin rights, cannot install any additional software because it doesn't have the privileges. That's a good way to kind of protect your computer that way through, account privileges. Also, when there are updates for your browser or your operating system, set it on automatic so it will always check every day for the latest and greatest patches and upgrades. So that's a good thing. Also, if you want to do backups, of course you can store it in the cloud. It's a good way to do it. It will usually cost money. Through Google, you have 15 gigabytes of storage in the cloud, which should be efficient when we talk about documents. But if you have to store video files or something, 15 gigabytes is not a lot. So buy an external storage with maybe even a PIN code to unlock the device if you have very sensitive data on it. But just an external storage like a big USB drive or an external hard drive should be sufficient for backup of data. And if you can, work in the cloud. If you have Office 365, you don't need to worry about this. This is all cloud-based, and you basically don't need to do any data backups anymore. Most of the people out there, most of the consumers, they have consumer hardware. You have consumer hardware, and you have company hardware, or I should say, like very professional stuff. Because if you have a professional router access point, you barely need to do any reboots. It will work for years without a restart, and it will just be very stable. But for consumers, it's a different market and the requirements are not that high. But what you do need to check out is if you use a wireless access point, make sure that it's WPA3 or at least 2 or 3 enabled. And then we talk about the wireless encryption of data in transit. Basically, it's the wireless protocol to encrypt the data. So make sure that you have one of the latest protocols enabled, and if that's not possible, just buy a new router. It's not that expensive and it will greatly improve on security. Also, check regularly if there are latest patches on the software. And usually the interface is built the way that you just have to click upgrade and then install, and then the router itself will restart and the new firmware software will be loaded. Many security holes can be found in routers and Wi-Fi access points, so it's vital that you buy from a brand that has extended lifetime support or lifetime support of the software. That will greatly improve on security as well. And if you can, again, this is not needed with corporate stuff, but especially with the hardware that consumers use, you can schedule reboots. Let's say, for instance, every Monday morning at 5 o'clock, just before the working day starts, 5 o'clock in the morning, you can schedule a reboot. And maybe do that again on Friday for the weekend. So that way the software will kind of reboot and it will stay stable, because I used to have a point that I had a Wi-Fi access point, maybe around 100 euros, and I needed to restart it every week because all of a sudden I didn't have any Wi-Fi anymore. When I rebooted it, there was my Wi-Fi again. Just simple stuff like this, and you can schedule reboots if you need. Basically, everything when it comes to the laptop of computer is the most important. Secondly, I would say go for a nice, good router with good support. When we talk about external storage, yes, if you have Office 365, don't worry about it. If you have anything else, and it also depends on the kind of data, go for an external hard drive. And Home Assistant is, yeah, if you can limit the access from this software to other parts of your network using a VLAN, would be sufficient already. And if you can mute the microphone, let's say during the weekdays, if you don't use it between 9 to 5, then make sure that the microphone is not in use and it only starts recording in the evening. But then again, don't go for Google Home or any other software with a microphone in it that's constantly listening. Just go for your own Home Assistant software, install it somewhere on a device, maybe even a Raspberry Pi that doesn't use a lot of power or bandwidth, and you can go from there. Just a few practical tips. I hope it was useful, and we hope to see you in the next one.